So the research, we've summarized it into 3 major categories. Now again, I'm cautioning you. I'm flying by stuff. I could spend 2 days nonstop on this one slide. But what we did was take all the findings and we put them into 3 major areas. What did we find happened in these schools relative to organizational leadership? What was the organizational leadership about? How did they function? Number 2, what does the instructional leadership look like? Now let me give you one. Remember 25 most rapidly improving elementary schools, 25 most rapidly improving middle schools, 25 most rapidly improving high schools. This is not a trick question. Therefore, how many middle schools and high schools are there? 50. 50. 47 of those 50 schools, none of which know each other, that represent a total of 34 different states. They have never met. They will meet for the first time this June at a meeting. 47 of the 50 had eliminated department chair people. Yep. And I know there are some department chair people in the room. I can tell by the sound. And I didn't say exterminate. I said eliminate. Okay? Instead, what did they do? They created chair people of interdisciplinary departments. And you'll see why before I'm done. So there's a whole series of instructional issues. And then there's a whole series of teaching issues. I'm going to focus on the teacher issues because the other thing we find is what we call top-down support for bottom-up reform. In these schools, truly, decisions are made based upon what is best for the classroom level. And forgive me, administrators in this audience, we profess that in American education. But ask most classroom teachers. The decisions aren't, first and foremost, always made based upon what's best at the classroom level. They are in these nation's highest performing schools. Organizational leadership, 6 different things. I'll spend all of 2 minutes on the total of 6 of them. 1 is you got to create a culture that will support change. I probably have that here. Let's try. How many in this room believe it's in the best interest of the children you serve that we find a way somehow to improve student performance across the board? Hands way up. Not part way up high. Let's see. Okay, good. Hands down. How many think we don't need to do it? Okay, everybody's in agreement. Good. How many of you think you personally are the problem? You know why? Not one of the governors from either party thought they were the problem. I've addressed joint legislatures in 31 states in the country. Haven't found a state legislator who believes they are the problem. Those corporate leaders, they don't believe they are the problem. All the foundations popping up in and around to help American education do not believe they are the problem. We know we're not the problem. God knows parents know they're not the problem. I got a question. Who's the problem? High-performing schools create an absolute sense of urgency on everyone's part. They create a culture. Then, because if you don't create that culture, and you try to do the rest of the things I'm going to tell you, you're going to feel like the cat in this next picture. And those German shepherds will be your colleagues. In fact, how many of you can put a human face right on that dog right there, okay? They then create a shared vision. A shared vision. Folks, state tests are essential, but not an adequate definition of an educated person in the 21st century. Essential, but not adequate. So what do you have to be adequate? And ladies and gentlemen, these schools spend a lot of time talking about that. They talk about stretching students and student engagement and all kinds of other issues. They talk about structures and systems. I just talked about department chair people. Let me give you a structure we find. We find that teachers are looping in the elementary schools. 25 for 25, most rapidly improving elementary schools in the country. None of them know each other. 25 for 25, the teachers are looping, almost every teacher. You all know what looping is? Guess what we found? 25 most rapidly improving middle schools, 25 most rapidly improving high schools, 43 of them are looping. 8th grade teachers to 9th. Oh my God, doesn't he know they're different buildings? It's exactly what I know. If the kids were the priorities, why would you ever be taking them out of smaller cloistered environments and putting them into larger, more disconnected environments? When they're physically and emotionally going through changes in their own bodies, they have no clue how to deal with. They're looping 8th grade teachers up to 9th. Now, not all 8th grade teachers. There are a few 8th grade teachers the kids never want to see again, okay? And when the 8th grade teacher loops up to 9th, they change the high school staff forever. And then when they loop back to 8th, do they become a lot better 8th grade teachers the next time around? Anybody tell me why? So can anybody in the room tell me why? 250 people in this room and nobody's doing it? We find enormous structural differences in these schools. They build leadership teams. To the leadership at Plato, my hat's off to you. My hat's off to you by inviting teams here. See, you want to change schools? Forgive me, administrators, we can't do it at the administrative level alone. It's got to be teacher, mid-level administrators, and senior administrators working seamlessly in a team. And that's what we find. We find that they do not do what most schools in America are right now doing. Teacher evaluation based upon what? Nation's highest performing schools talk about teacher selection, support, development, and evaluation as a continuum. We don't find it in most schools in America. We find that they use data systems to truly track how well kids are doing. A data system that teachers understands, kids understands, parents understand. When it comes to organizational leadership, high expectations for all kids. I'll show you why that's important in a couple minutes. High expectations for all kids. Then they have a tightly defined curriculum in terms of outcomes, but not down to telling each teacher how to teach each day. They are deeply committed to teaching literacy and math across the curriculum. Everybody teaches literacy. Everybody teaches math. They are deeply driven to making sure that at the instructional level, data systems that are used administratively are also used instructionally, and they have sustained, focused professional development. Forgive me, in most schools in America, professional development is like having a spasm. We have a spasm every 2 or 3 months, and one spasm has nothing to do with the next. And you break the staff into thirds, and the bottom third say to the middle third, relax, this too shall pass. Everything else has. What do they do in the nation's highest performing schools? Listen carefully. Almost all of them have no mandated professional development days. Let me repeat that. Almost all of them have no mandated professional development days. They are all optional. And you know who shows up? Top 1/3. Often the middle 1/3. You know who stays home? The bottom 1/3, because you're better off without them anyways. Focus, sustained professional development, high quality, optional. Totally different than most schools in America.